Back with another NFL draft film study, and this one featuring Rueben Bain, edge for the Miami Hurricanes. And to this point in the season, you've heard from Headley, you've heard from Drew. My turn now. Juice is up next, and I want to talk about one of my favorite players in the draft class. Obviously, if you're familiar with the channel, you know I'm a Hurricanes fan, but I'll be as objective as I possibly can with Rueben Bain. But we are very high on Bain here at Couch Potato General Manager. Currently, our sixth ranked player in our consensus rankings. In my individual rankings, I have him in the top 5, and he could potentially climb higher than he currently is. So let's get into this film study featuring Rueben Bain. What you'll see throughout this video is an amalgamation of Rueben Bain over the years. So as a true freshman in 2023, we'll start there. We'll take a look at how he performed in 2024 and then the early parts of 2025. See that trajectory and how he's developed over the years here. So the first thing that I think most are aware of when it comes to Rueben Bain, and even for those the uninitiated, it's the power. It's the violent hands. It's the power. It's the leverage that shows up time and time, snap after snap with Rueben Bain, and you'll see it here. He's working against Clemson right tackle Blake Miller, whom has some question marks in terms of his strength, but will be playing on Sundays. He's a good mover and a talented player in his own right. So you'll just see how Bain just tosses him aside, latches on, gets those hands on him. And I think that's part of what makes Bain so effective is that he controls offensive line. He gets those arms extended, gets his hands placed where he wants them so he can then control the offensive lineman, force Klubnik off his spot. He throws an INT. The next play, you see Bain working against the right guard, and he actually gets held on this play, but it's just his power, his initial quickness to get across the face of the guard and make a play. On the next snap here, you see Bain actually gets across the face of Blake Miller, but Miller does a good job of recovering. That said, Bain moves Klubnik off his spot and actually shows some athleticism here with the spin move. That's the thing about Bain. It's not just a power rush. He actually has some secondary and tertiary pass rush moves, really advanced already out the gate in 2023 as a true freshman. All right, once again, going to work on the right tackle, Miller here. And again, you see the power. You see those arms get extended. Just kind of throws Miller out the club. Gets to Klubnik this time. Actually nets the sack. Working against the left tackle, you get a long inside hand, long arm, that power, that leverage, that torque that he generates from the lower body. It's just too much for offensive linemen. He overwhelms them consistently. Other thing that really stands out to me, and the reason why I think he is so impactful week in and week out, is the fact that he's always running to the football. You can see him here redirecting, working in open space, gets to the receiver on the receiver screen and makes a tackle. He actually throws somebody out the club as well. I love Bain's hustle and his motor. The Canes have Clemson backed up here, and you'll notice Bain in kind of that 4-eye alignment. We just talked about Bain's motor. There's also a certain level of unselfishness that I see in his play, particularly when he reduces down as working against the run, right? He's going to give up his body here. He gets across the face of the offensive lineman. Yeah, 4-eye is not for the faint of heart. And of course, there's no fear in Bain, right? He does whatever is necessary. Very versatile player, can play all along the defensive line. On this next snap, you'll see Bain take on the double team. The tackle and the guard are trying to get a double team, and the guard then tries to climb to the second level. But Bain is so stout at the point of attack. You talk about offensive linemen and their anchor, but it's so difficult to move Rueben Bain off his spot. He weathers the double team, continues to work, and gets in on the tackle, again, limiting this run to a short gain. So what have we discussed thus far? We've talked about Bain's hand usage. We've talked about his power, about his physicality, about his willingness to give up his body in the run game, the ability to affect the quarterback, the motor, running to the football. Good things happen when you run to the football. I think recognition is an area where you see some really great things on film from Bain, and then in some instances, not so great. But here's an example of Bain working from the backside. Clemson's pulling both the backside guard and tackle. And you'll notice Bain just works his way down the line and sits in the gap where the ball carrier is going. This is a true freshman, folks. This is uncanny. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Some may argue that he's guessing here. I think this is something that he picked up on because he does it on a consistent basis. You'll see it throughout this video. On this next and final clip from in 2023, you'll see Bain once again keying on the offensive line. The guard pulls, backside guard pulls. The tackle appeared to look like he was going to pull as well. I think that's what tipped off Bain, but he actually stays on the backside. Still, Bain works his way down the line and makes a play on the ball carrier, the quarterback in this case. They were trying to run quarterback power, but Bain sniffed it out. Didn't even have to make the tackle. That was a good job by the defensive front, but he was there. In the event his teammates didn't make the play, that wasn't going anywhere. All right, that takes us to 2024. And as a Hurricane fan, I'm sure Hurricane fans out there, film evaluators, they understand that Miami's defense was bad. It was bad. There were communication breakdowns, lots of big plays. Despite how explosive an offense they were, led by Cam Ward, Miami struggled defensively for large portions of the 2024 season. Bain himself wasn't healthy throughout the entirety of the season. He missed a good 5-6 weeks within the season, and I think it impacted his conditioning. I don't think he played the full complement of snaps that he typically does. Which again goes back to the motor and his conditioning and his ability to affect the game, right? That's part of his superpowers, his ability to play a lot of snaps and remain effective throughout the game, well into the fourth quarter. He was playing a lot more interior defensive lineman and perhaps carried a little too much weight. I thought he still played well. In fact, through summer scouting, some of his best reps, most of his best reps came as an interior defensive lineman. I think certainly looking at the early parts of 2025, it seems like edge truly is his home. He has the flexibility, the versatility to reduce down in some sub packages, take advantage of a matchup, move him around. But again, I thought Bain in 2024 wasn't his best self, but still very effective player when he was healthy. All right, you'll notice here, once again, Bain keying on that backside pull from the guard and finds his way right in the gap that the quarterback power was intended to go to. You also notice in terms of Georgia Tech, they do a lot of window dressing. Very different offense as compared to Clemson pre-snap, which created issues for Miami. However, on this particular snap, Bain, once again, keying on those pulling offensive linemen, finds the ball carrier. So one of the things that I want to point out here ahead of this next play is that when the offense is pulling that backside guard, or maybe they pull both the guard and the tackle, Bain having been on the backside, he can just follow those players to where the play is designed to go. However, when on the front side, you can't freelance like that. You just can't afford to freelance like that. You have to set a physical edge. That's an area that Miami in general didn't matter. It could be Tyler Barron, it could have been Mesidor, it was Bain. No one was setting an edge, a physical edge on a consistent basis. Miami got outflanked time and again. And with Bain specifically, I think it's just him trying to do too much. I think it's him trying to overcompensate from some of the other guys on the field, just overzealous. There's certain plays that your job isn't to actually make the tackle. It's to ensure that your teammate is in position to make the tackle. So what I would expect in this particular play with that backside pull, Bain being on the front side of this play, I'm expecting a car accident. I want him to hit that pulling offensive lineman in the mouth and really mess up the timing in terms of the development of the rush lane here. Unfortunately, he gets too far inside and helps create a huge hole, huge lane, and it leads to an explosive. All right. And as you can see on this next clip, a lot of communication. They're trying to figure it out. This was commonplace. And this wasn't necessarily a Bain issue, right? As far as pre-snap communication and alignment and things of that nature, that is squarely coaching. But as a result, you got your players thinking too much here. And I think in the case of this particular snap, Bain's eyes aren't in the right place. They run a jet sweep right past his ear hole, and he's just completely out of position. He's not there to set that edge. All right. Again, Georgia Tech makes a shift here, and I thought this was really impressive. I'm going to give Georgia Tech, their coaching staff, some credit here. Bain, going back as far as his freshman season, does a great job of keying on the backside pullers, right, and positioning himself down along the defensive line throughout the play in order to effectively just wait in the gap for the ball carrier. But Georgia Tech picked up on this. They picked up on this. We have that backside guard pulling, and they even have the tight end after the shift act like he's going to pull, but he reverses field. They clearly saw this on tape and took advantage of Bain, who has great recognition in his own right. So you'll notice that he's out of position as all the action starts left, but makes its way back to the right. That's good coaching. I'm not going to hold that one against Bain. That's just really good coaching. All right, next rep here. Again, you get to see Bain, how stout he is at the point of attack. His ability to, again, get those arms extended, control the offensive lineman, and make a play on the ball carrier. I said it before, and I'll say it again, and I will continue to say it in this video. Good things happen when you run to the football. Once again, big man understands ball's being thrown out to the receiver on the screen. Run to the football, run to the football. He actually runs it down and makes the play once again. All right, so here's a good example of neutralizing Bain's pass rush. I think at least prior to the 2025 season, because it looked different. It looked different against Notre Dame. But prior to that, the more space you put between yourself and Rueben Bain, the less effective he is. He's not the quick twitch type of edge. I think he's a better athlete than probably given credit for, but he's not the super bendy speed guy off the edge, right? So if you have a decent vertical set, if you can create space, I think it neutralizes his power to a certain degree. He can't get into that bag, that deep bag of pass rush moves as quickly as he would like and overwhelm the offensive lineman. You'll see. All right. That takes us to 2025. And what I just said about Bain not being able to neutralize the space between he and the offensive lineman, forget about it. Forget about it. He looks to be in phenomenal shape. He looks more explosive. Again, not the super bendy, twitchy, tweener type of edge. That's clearly not who he is, right? It is still very much hands, power, violence. But it was evident that Bain had extra gear coming into 2025. He looks like a faster, frankly, he's stronger than he's ever been, but he actually looks like a better athlete now. So here is Bain at the top of the formation, or along the defensive line at the top of the formation. He's matched up against the left tackle, and a lot more even man fronts with the new defensive coordinator, less reduction, less 3 technique and 4 eye for sure. He's playing edge a lot more in this particular contest, early parts of the 2025 season. But look at the get off from Bain here, and watch how he's able to flatten. Now, again, you could tell he's not an elite bender, super agile player, but he is improved. He's improved as an athlete in terms of his burst and his ability to flatten to the quarterback. Doesn't quite make this play, but does a great job of getting the quarterback off his spot. That old issue we saw from 2024, when Bain is trying to do a little too much on the front side of these plays, he crashes down where he needs to be setting an edge, and it exacerbates the lane that Notre Dame is trying to create up front. Here's Bain again, coming off the edge with speed, flatten it out. Good dip there, right? Forces an off-target throw. Working against the right tackle, too strong. Just simply too strong for those guys, man. Gets in on the tackle. Playmaker, all right? Up in the 2-point stance. I added this clip once again to illustrate the fact that while Bain can make plays, certainly in 2025, he's more explosive. He can eat up some of that space. It's the only way I think you can mitigate his power, his advanced hand usage, his pass rush moves, right? Is to delay contact with him. The sooner he's able to get in that phone booth and fight with you, the worse off the offensive lineman is. All right, here we go. I told you, run into the football. Good things happen. The big fella, that motor is always running hot. He redirects. Great job by the DBs getting involved, challenging this screen. And Bain comes away with an INT, a big play, turnover. These last couple clips are money time, right? When we talk about edge rushes, we talk about affecting the passer. When the game is on the line, when you know that the offense has to throw the football, can you make a difference? Can you win your one-on-one battles? And Bain does it here along with Mesidor. Mesidor got in there in a hurry. Bain gets in on it as well. I'm not sure what the technique was there with the right tackle. Looked like Bain was about to do a Reggie White hump move on him. So keep an eye on that. If he adds a Reggie White hump move, I don't know what to tell you. This might be the top prospect in the class. Able to win those individual battles when the game is on the line is the hallmark of a quality pass rusher. And as I mentioned, Bain consistently affects the games on Saturdays, and he most certainly will do so on Sundays as well. So in my preliminary summer scouting report, truncated, obviously, this is a truncated version of it. You can see a full version on our Patreon, but I'll read it verbatim. Our base defender with advanced rush plan, heavy and active hands, wins early with power and underrated quickness at snap, and finishes with wide array pass rush moves. We saw that consistently throughout these clips. Stout in the run game and handles double teams well. Terrific run defender, assuming his eyes are in the right place and he's actually doing his job. Not a bendy, fast twitch player, although I'm seeing more improvement in that area. I don't expect him to be elite there. That's not the basis of his game, but he does look like he's taken a step in that department. And as I mentioned, needs to be more assignment sound. The strengths, scheme versatile. You've seen him line up all across the defensive line and make plays wherever he's lining up. He has diverse and refined pass rush moves, and he's had them since he was a true freshman, right? Going back to 2023. So I can only imagine he's going to continue to get better. Plays with leverage and power. That is evident. That there's no doubt about that. Impressive motor. Like I said, always run into the football. Good things happen when you run to the football. And most importantly, game-changing ability. Not only against the pass, but against the run as well. Areas of improvement. Touched on this. Overzealous and will sacrifice gap integrity to make a play. Doesn't have, as I mentioned, that elite burst and closing speed, but he's not that kind of player. I'm not terribly concerned about that. And especially considering that he's started to show improvement there. The eye discipline can certainly improve. And as I mentioned, the 2024 injury impacted his conditioning. Ideal role usage. Again, this goes back to the 2024 tape, right? This is going to be edited and updated, right? But going back to the 2024 tape, I thought in base sets, 4-eye, 5, 6, 7 tech on early downs, and then in those sub packages, obvious passing situations when he was carrying a bit more weight, wasn't as explosive coming off that injury. I thought his best reps came as a 3 tech, but the player that I see now, I don't think it matters, and I'm perfectly fine leaving him out the edge. In fact, I'm fine with him at the wide 9. I don't think that's the ideal usage for him, but Bain has that kind of ability, certainly. That's going to do it for this Rueben Bain NFL draft film study. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you next time.